A poor boy bargains with a spirit to borrow more years for his dying mother, but every borrow day must be repaid with something priceless. They say time waits for no one. But what if love could make it stop even for a moment? In a quiet little town, where the wind whispered secrets through broken rooftops, lived a boy who wanted only one thing: to save his dying mother. He had no riches, no power, and no miracles, only a heart brave enough to bargain with the impossible. But when he found a spirit who could lend him time itself, he learned that every borrowed second comes with a price. This is the story of The Boy Who Borrowed Time. A tale of love that defied fate, of sacrifice that crossed the edge of eternity. Sit back, let your heart listen, and kindly heat the subscription button on your screen. In a small, forgotten town where the wind always carried the sound of crying trees lived a boy named Eli. He was only 15, but his eyes carried the sadness of a man twice his age. His world was small, a crumbling house at the edge of the village, a rusted water bucket, and a mother who coughed every dawn like the world was breaking inside her chest. Eli's mother, Mara, was all he had. His father had vanished when Eli was 5, taken by sickness and silence. Since then, time had become their quiet enemy, each day slower, heavier, crueler. But lately, even time seemed to be running out. Every morning, Eli woke to the sound of his mother gasping for air, clutching her chest, whispering a prayer through cracked lips. The doctor from the city had said she had only a few months left. Words that hung in the air like a curse. The boy refused to believe it. He'd sold their goats to buy medicine, worked in the village market till midnight, and even skipped school, yet nothing changed. Her breathing grew shallower, her skin paler, her heartbeat weaker. Until that one night. The night Eli decided to borrow time. It began when an old woman came to the market. No one knew where she came from. Her eyes were gray like storm clouds, and her voice carried something ancient. She sold herbs no one had seen before, whispered things no one wanted to hear. When Eli approached her stall, she looked up and said without asking, "You seek to hold on to someone the world is trying to take." Eli froze. "How did you?" The woman smiled faintly, her wrinkled hand tracing symbols in the dust. "There are ways to bend time, to borrow what is not yours, but every breath taken from death must be repaid." Her words struck him like lightning. He didn't understand what she meant, but he followed her anyway. That night, she led him beyond the town's edge, into the ancient forest, where no one dared to go after sunset. The trees whispered secrets, the moon hung low, and the ground shimmered faintly with blue light. In the heart of the forest was a small pond, still, black and silent. The old woman stopped and turned to him. "Here," she said, "is where the line between life and death grows thin. You may call the keeper of hours, but remember, child, every hour borrowed must be repaid with something of equal worth." Eli swallowed hard. "I'll give anything," he said. "Just save my mother." The woman's eyes glimmered. "Then speak his name when the water goes still." She vanished before he could ask what name to call. The night deepened. The wind stopped. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Eli knelt beside the pond, staring at his reflection. His heart raced. He whispered into the darkness, "If there's anyone there, please, I need time. Just a little more time for my mother." The water rippled. Then it spoke. "Time," said a voice that was not a voice, deep, echoing everywhere at once. "Time cannot be owned, boy, only borrowed." Eli's chest tightened. "Then let me borrow it. Please, take anything. My days, my years, I don't care." The voice seemed to laugh softly, like wind through broken glass. "Brave words. But every day I lend, you must return with something priceless. something you can never replace. Eli nodded, desperate. "I'll pay whatever it costs. Then rise, borrower of time," the voice said. "And remember, time is a circle. What you give returns to you." The pond flashed white. Eli gasped, and everything went silent. When he awoke, dawn was breaking. The forest was gone. He was lying beside his house, drenched in dew. For a moment, he thought it had all been a dream, until he heard his mother's voice. "Eli, my son?" He turned. She was standing at the doorway, smiling, her color back, her breath steady, her eyes alive. "Mother!" he cried, running into her arms. He wept, feeling the warmth of her skin, the heartbeat against his cheek. She laughed for the first time in months. "Oh, my boy, I feel new again, like time itself started over." So, Eli didn't care how. He only thanked the heavens, or whatever had listened. But far in the forest, unseen, a dark shadow watched him, and a whisper echoed through the morning breeze. Borrowed time always comes due. For the next few days, everything felt like a miracle. Mara could walk again. She cooked, she sang while washing clothes, she told stories like she used to when Eli was small. The house was alive again. Neighbors came to see her, shocked by her recovery. "It's a miracle," they said. "God has answered your prayers." Eli smiled, but deep inside, he knew it wasn't God. And then, the repayments began. The first came quietly. Eli woke one morning and found his school bag empty. Every notebook, every award, every letter of recommendation he had earned over the years gone. He searched everywhere, but they'd vanished without trace. At first, he thought maybe he'd misplaced them. But that night, as he tried to sleep, the same voice from the pond whispered inside his mind, "The first payment is knowledge, a piece of who you were. A fair trade for 3 days of your mother's life." Eli sat up, heart pounding. "No, wait, that wasn't the deal." But there was no reply, only silence. 3 days later, his mother was still well, even stronger. But Eli noticed something strange. Whenever she looked at him, her smile flickered, as though she'd forgotten something, someone. "Mom," he asked softly one morning, "do you remember what Dad looked like?" She frowned, struggling to recall. He had kind eyes, I think. Or was it you with kind eyes?" She laughed uncertainly. "Oh, it's all so blurry." Eli's stomach turned cold. That night, he returned to the forest. The pond shimmered again, waiting. "Why are you doing this to me?" he shouted into the water. "You said I could borrow time, not lose everything." The voice replied, calm and timeless. "You asked for life, boy. Life must feed on something. Every heartbeat your mother takes now was meant to stop days ago. You are feeding her with your own essence, your memories, your moments, your future." Eli fell to his knees. "There must be another way." "There is no other way. But you may stop borrowing, end the debt, and time will take what it is owed." He shook his head. "No, not yet. Just give me more, please." "Then remember the rule. Each day borrowed must be repaid with something priceless." The pond glowed once more, and Eli felt his chest tighten like a piece of him was being pulled away. Days turned to weeks. Mara thrived, smiling brighter than ever. But Eli began to fade. He forgot faces, names, even simple things like his birthday. His body grew weaker. He stopped going to school. Yet every time he looked at his mother, radiant and alive, he whispered to himself, "It's worth it." Until one evening, when the wind changed, he returned home from fetching water and found his mother sitting by the window, staring at nothing. Her smile was gone. "Mom?" he said gently. She turned, confusion in her eyes. "Who are you?" The bucket fell from his hand, spilling water across the floor. "Mom, it's me, Eli." But she only shook her head, terrified. "I don't have a son." "Dury." "There. Dury Sen." Eli backed away, trembling. The whisper returned, cold, distant, final. "Every breath borrowed takes something precious in return. You gave her your memories. Now she no longer remembers you." Tears streamed down Eli's face. He wanted to scream, to beg, but his throat felt hollow. That night, he went back to the pond for the third time. His reflection flickered thin, pale, fading. He clenched his fists. "Take anything else, just not her memories. Please, let her remember me." The voice answered. "Do you wish to borrow more time still?" He hesitated. He wanted to stop. He wanted his mother to remember him. But then he remembered her coughing, her pain, her broken body before all this. He whispered, "Yes, one last time." The air trembled. The pond's light grew fierce. "Very well. But understand this. Every second you borrow now will cost you something greater than memory or knowledge. It will cost you your place in her world." Eli nodded. "If she can live, I'll pay it." "Then so it shall be." A surge of cold energy rushed through him, and everything went black. When Eli woke up the next morning, the house was quiet. His mother was outside, humming, her face glowing with peace. But when he called out, she didn't turn. He stepped closer and froze. The sunlight passed through his hands. His reflection was gone. He was still there, but unseen, unfelt, forgotten. His voice trembled. "Mom, it's me. Please, look at me." She only smiled at the empty air, whispering softly, "Thank you, whoever you are, for giving me more time." Eli's tears fell to the earth, vanishing like mist. The wind carried his whisper back to the forest. A promise kept is a life repaid. And somewhere deep within the pond, the Keeper of Hours smiled. Time always takes what it is owed. The days moved like fading echoes after Eli vanished. His mother, Mara, continued to live healthy, radiant, and full of laughter. She baked bread for the neighbors, tended her small garden, and even began to sing again at the village gatherings. Everyone said she was a miracle, but no one knew that a miracle always has a price. Somewhere beyond the veil of time, Eli wandered. He was not dead, yet not alive. The world around him was a dim reflection. He could see people, hear them faintly, but they passed through him like smoke. His feet left no prints, his shadow cast none. At first, he cried every night, calling for his mother, whispering her name, but the wind never carried his voice. He was caught in a place the spirits called the Between, where borrowed time is stored and lost souls wait to be remembered. And in that place stood the pond again, darker than ever, its light flickering like dying stars. The voice of the keeper rose from the depths. "You borrowed what you could not return. You gave her your years, your memories, your presence. Yet still, your heart clings to her. Why?" Eli's voice was a whisper of pain. "Because she's my mother. Because love doesn't end when time does." The pond shimmered, faint ripples of sorrow spreading across its surface. "Then you are different from the others," the keeper said. "Most who borrow time run from their debt. You paid it willingly." Eli looked up, eyes burning. "Can I see her? Just once? Please." The keeper was silent for a long moment. Then the voice softened. "There is one way. But if you go, you can never return here. You will fade completely from existence. Not even I will remember you. Eli smiled faintly. That's fine. I just want her to know she was loved. The pond began to glow again. Not cold this time, but warm, like the sunrise. Then go, borrower of time. Your final hour is yours. The world shifted. Eli found himself standing in their old home again, the sunlight slanting through the windows, the smell of bread in the air. His mother sat by the table, humming softly as she arranged flowers. She couldn't see him, but for the first time, he didn't try to speak. He simply watched the woman who had given him everything, her laughter, her strength, her warmth. He saw the small things he'd missed, the way she still set 2 plates on the table out of habit, the way she stared sometimes at the empty chair across from her, smiling at nothing. She didn't remember him, but her soul did, and that was enough. Then, something strange happened. As Eli turned to leave, the wind blew through the window and carried his whisper across the room. Thank you, Mom. She froze. Her eyes widened. Slowly, she turned toward the window, heart pounding. Eli? For the first time, she felt him. Not saw, not heard, but felt. The way a heart remembers what the mind forgets. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, My boy, wherever you are, thank you. The air shimmered. Eli smiled a quiet, peaceful smile. And then, like a breath returning to the sky, he faded completely. Months later, Mara often walked to the edge of the forest, though she didn't know why. Something always drew her there, a strange peace that wrapped around her heart. One evening, she saw something unusual near the pond, a single wildflower growing in the center of a circle of light. She knelt and touched it. Its petals were warm, glowing faintly, like it held sunlight inside. And as her fingers brushed it, a memory flickered of a boy's laughter, a promise whispered long ago. I'll always protect you, Mom, she gasped softly. Eli? The wind rose around her gently, swirling through the trees, and for a heartbeat, she felt arms around her, familiar and tender. She smiled through her tears. Thank you, my son, for every borrowed day. Meanwhile, beyond the forest, in the realm of time, the keeper of hours stood by the pond, watching. The ancient voice spoke again, though softer now, almost human. A boy gave everything he had for love. Time cannot hold such purity. The ripples on the water formed a faint image, Eli's reflection smiling, free of pain, free of fear. And then the voice whispered, almost in reverence, let it be written, love can borrow even from eternity. Years passed. Mara lived to old age, peaceful and full of grace. She often told children stories about a mysterious spirit who traded time for love, never realizing it was her own son's tale. On her last night, when her breath grew faint and the world turned quiet, she smiled at the ceiling and whispered one last time, I'm coming home, Eli. Somewhere beyond time, the pond glowed brighter than it ever had. And from within its light, 2 silhouettes met mother and son, finally together again. The keeper watched silently, then turned away. For once, even time itself stood still. They say time is the most precious thing in the world, but maybe love is the only thing strong enough to borrow from it. The boy who borrowed time didn't just change fate, he proved that love, when true, is never wasted. It only finds another way to keep living. In the end, the boy didn't steal time. He shared it. He gave everything he had, his laughter, his memories, his very place in the world, just so his mother could have one more sunrise. And though he faded from her eyes, his love never disappeared. It lingered in the wind, in the glow of the morning, in the quiet moments where her heart still remembered what her mind had forgotten. Because real love never runs out of time. In the end, time could not be borrowed forever, but love Love never runs out. If this story touched your heart, don't let it fade into silence. Subscribe, like, comment what part moved you most, and share it so someone out there remembers that even in the race against time, love always wins. Stay safe